So I finally write a word down and he goes, okay, Karen, lift up your piece of paper. And we lifted him up at the same time and we had the same word. It was invisible.
What if the thing holding you back isn't fear? It's the story that you've never let yourself tell. Maybe it's a story that you've carried for years, quietly convinced that nobody would care. Today's guest, Karen Ray, started by uncovering her own story, and now she won't stop until 1 million women have told theirs. She's the visionary behind the Being Brave tour and the book Being Brave, which is an anthology of like 29 women's stories of courage. Karen, I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. Let's get into this.
Yes. And that's such a huge number, 1 million. But you know what? There's lots of ladies with a story.
There, I firmly believe everyone has a story. And I have to tell listeners that we are related here because of my friend Donita Wheeler, who actually has her own chapter in your book, the Being Brave book. And that connection led me to photographing many of the women in the book and becoming part of your community. And I just have to say, it just goes to show the power of what you're building community wise. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. And Yvonne, I don't know if you realize that the ladies are still talking about that day they had the photo shoot.
Oh, no way.
Yes, they're like,
That's so
do you
nice.
remember when Yvonne came out and she made us all look so pretty and she took our pictures and then they're in the book and the ladies there was some kind of special connection that day. I don't know.
It's
It
a
was
good
just like
day.
it was like magic. Well, you brought such a playful, warm, inviting spirit with you when you came out to photo shoot, and it was so special. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, my complete and total pleasure. Photography feels like play to me. So,
Uh-huh.
that's easy. That's easy peasy. So 1 million women. Okay, so where did that number come from and what does celebrating 1 million women actually mean to you?
Yeah. Oh, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question. Yeah, so 1 million women. So, during COVID, so let's go back prior to COVID. I was started with a passion project. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 27 years. And I thought, what's next in my life? So I'm, around in my mid 50s at this time. And I started a passion project of bringing women together. And at my first event, 47 women showed up. And I thought, oh my gosh, what do we have here? I had no
That's
idea. I was just
crazy good.
yeah. And I thought,
Did you think anybody would show up? If I hosted something, I'd be like, I don't know if anybody's gonna come.
yeah, I thought, five people, my good girlfriends
Right?
will come. But I kind of put it out just, on an email or whatever, because we didn't have all the systems and I wasn't running a business or anything. Yeah. And I thought, oh gosh, people want to have a place to go. And I
Wow.
had a web show with Fave Lifestyles and it was all about our favorites and the things that you want to share with your girlfriends and our stories. And so then I walked through an unexpected divorce, or unexpected to me, and I thought, oh my gosh, is what am I going to do next? Am I going to take this to be a business? I wasn't sure if I was an event planner, a social media marketer, what. I hadn't worked for 27 years. I didn't know what my skills were.
Wow, that must have been daunting.
It was very daunting. It was a lot of self-discovery. It was the first time I'd lived on my own ever.
Wow.
But walking back into the workforce, what was that going to look like? Walking
Yeah.
through, the relationship issue that you have to, you're leaving a long-term marriage of 28 years. I was becoming an empty nester, and I was walking through menopause.
All the things. Oh my
All
gosh.
at the same time. And
Yeah.
so, yes. And so, just kind of navigating through all that, all these pieces I feel like led up to what this celebrating 1 million women is, because there was a pivot point where I was with a counselor and I walked in one day and he goes, Karen, there's a big white piece of paper. He goes, I want you to share with me how you feel in your life. And I'm like, and I noticed he had a piece of paper and he had written something on it too. And so I'm sitting there going, oh, I wonder what he's expecting me to write. I'm full of emotion at that point anyway. So I finally write a word down. And he goes, okay, Karen, lift up your piece of paper. And we lifted him up at the same time and we had the same word. It was invisible.
Whoa.
and big
Okay,
alligator.
so how did that hit you?
Oh, it like a ton of bricks.
Wow.
It was like facing reality. It's like I had to realize that now I was in charge of my own life and how was I going to show up in it? Because he said, he goes, Karen, he goes, this doesn't have anything to do with anyone else. It has everything to do with you and how you're showing up in your own life and for yourself. Ooh.
Boy,
I,
those are
I
tough words, but truer words were never spoken. I mean, that is true for all of us.
Yes. And so I went into deep discovery, worked with life coaches, counselors, all these different things. And I think that's what brought me really to this celebration. I realized that, at first I was like just trying to prove myself, prove that I was
Mm,
valued and I had some marketable skills that, all these different things, that I was worthy of showing up and wanted to be validated, all those things. And
yeah.
then you kind of come to this point, it's like where you self acceptance, and then celebration. I thought, why just show up? Why don't we celebrate who we are? And it was in the midst of COVID. So here I had all these events, all these things I was doing, creating spaces to celebrate women. Because I knew that if I had felt invisible and alone, maybe other women felt like that too. And maybe they really did have a story that could inspire some hope. And that's really what we focused on. And I thought, so I had to close down all my events and I had to pivot. And I'm sitting there one day and I had moved up to an island. And so in the wintertime at this particular cove, out of, I don't know, it was on Whidbey Island. And there was only 3 people living in all the condos of the, I don't know, 40 condos or whatever in the wintertime. There was 3 people.
Wow.
I
That
was
must
very,
have felt incredibly isolating.
yeah, but it was in the midst of COVID. So I felt kind of good because I could go out and walk and not worry about anything. So
True.
it was,
Yes.
and it was very healing. If you've ever been, by the ocean, all that salt water is just so healing. And,
Love
go
it.
put your feet in the sand, even if it's, rainy day, whatever. And so, but I was sitting there one day and it's kind of this God download is like, what if you celebrated 1 million women? What would that look like? And I thought, you know what, that might take me to the end of my life or beyond.
Yeah.
uh, Celebrating 1 million women. And in fact, I have a little poster that I look at every day. And the beauty we call you is what I had created at that time. Because I want women to realize that there's already beauty that lies within. And that's what the book it was about. And now our magazine is like, how can we go inside and celebrate ourselves and see that beauty and that brilliance and the value and the spark that we already have within? And that's how we can show up. We can show up in ourselves, who we are, in all the goodness and all the richness. And that's kind of what that is all about.
That is amazing. And it's here's the thing I'm thinking is that it sounds fluffy, to say we're celebrating the best of ourselves, but I just want to make an observation that it is not easy to celebrate yourself,
Correct.
especially I think as we get older and our heads have been filled with all these ideas about what it means to get older, and we are feeling perhaps invisible as we get older and all those things. And and I know for me, when I started this podcast, I was very I was focused on reinvention with a twist towards self-improvement. And what I've come to realize over time is it really isn't about self improvement. It's about letting what's already there be celebrated as you do. I mean, we have so much in common. It's crazy.
Yeah. And
Mission wise, I love it.
right. And one of the things about being brave, and I wasn't sure what I was going to name the book or the magazine, and that just kind of came. So it's called the Being Brave Tour, the magazine is now, but it's that everyday brave. So I told you that I'm taking line dancing,
Yeah.
and it's just fun. But you know what? I celebrate that I can actually go do that. And we laugh at our mistakes, we laugh at tripping or turning the wrong way. That's the celebration. It's not like, oh, I did this and I was really successful and I made this amount of money. That's not what we're celebrating. We're celebrating that we got through that darn test that we had to take, or maybe there was something medical that we had to go through. It's those everyday life things. Let's celebrate. You know what? I tapped into my grit and I got through it. I had resilience, or I had to overcome something, or I got through that really tough conversation. Those are the things we're celebrating, going, giving yourself a hug. It's like, yes, I did it. I got through it. And the better for it, for me, that I learned something, and going, yeah, you know what? I'm going to celebrate that I learned compassion or empathy or acceptance of myself or whatever that is. Those are the things that I look to celebrate.
Yeah. So how does a woman who just wrote the word invisible about herself end up building a global movement? I mean, what was the very first step?
I remember walking out that door. I mean, I had alligator tears running down my face. And I knew that I had been this people pleaser for so long. I was living to what I thought everyone else expected of me. So I really had to just step back and not even really honestly think about it. In fact, my mom asked me this the other day. I showed her the magazine and she goes, Karen, how did you come up with this? And I said, Mom, the idea popped in my head and I acted on it. I said, I
Was
didn't.
how long after that? Because I'm just imagining myself if that happened to me in a therapist's office and I held up this thing that
Uh,
says invisible, I might need to go like just snuggle up in bed for a while and pull the sheets up over my head, with like I don't know, the realization of that, or just to let that settle in or something. But I mean, did you just did an idea pop into your head? Was it like an aha that happened right away, or did it take a little bit of, I don't know, figuring out or steeping in it or
so this is one thing. I act. I thought I have got to do something about this. If I sit and stew about it and try to figure it out. So I signed up for classes. I thought, okay, if I'm not showing up, how can I show up? So I started going live and I thought, I'm just going to take women along on the journey. So I started sharing my story. But you have to be careful when you do share your story. And I realize this is that you have to have learned the lesson.
mm-hmm.
Can't be in the midst
Yeah.
of the lesson. So I made sure that whatever it was positive. And if it was something that I was learning, I was taking them along for the ride. So I said, I had this little note that I always had, and it says, creating my new beautiful life. So when I went live, I said, I'm showing up, I'm creating my new beautiful life, and this is my next step. So they were always action steps, or this is what I'm learning. I'm taking a class about uncovering accepting myself or forgiveness or whatever. So I started taking action because I knew if I sat there and tried to just think about it on my own. So I grabbed the most amazing women I know and surrounded myself with them. And I came up with these three pillars. One is I have a choice. So I realized I had a choice to show up or not show up for myself. And it was my responsibility. My second one was education. I started educating. I started taking every class that could help me walk forward to show up in my own life, and setting boundaries, all those things. And I still do that today. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, and surrounding myself with people actually who believed in me.
That's important.
Yeah, I call them my
Yeah.
wise friends. They're people who were really grounded, who I respected, who I admired in some way. I asked one woman to be a mentor. I said, would you come alongside me and be a mentor? And she's like laughing. She goes, Karen, she goes, we'll just be friends. And I said, okay. But yeah, I said, I'm going to glean all these little wise nuggets from you. And so those were really the things. I took action. I thought, okay, what's one, not 10, 20, but what is one thing that I can do each day to show up in my own life for myself?
You are a woman of action. I can see that based on everything that you do. Like you are a woman of act. Have you always been a woman of action? Has that just been something? Is that kind, how sometimes people have a secret sauce and maybe it's just something that particular thing has always been in you? Have you been an action
I
taker
think
always?
so, because as a young woman in high school and stuff, I kind of ran through school a little bit. I was a cheerleader, I was a class officer, I was in
Okay.
speech club, I was in band, I was in track,
So that's your superpower.
that's my superpower, sure.
That's your superpower. I
And
love it. And
More than that, what I discovered? In fact, one of my life coaches told me this. She goes, Karen, you know what you are? She goes, you're really consistent. Okay, consistency can be good or it can be bad because you can be really consistent at some good positive habits. So, but I thought, oh, I could be consistent. I could be. So during the COVID years, there was a particular amount of time where everybody's kind of on lockdown. I went live 5 days a week. I said, I am going to show up so other people know that we can still connect because
Yeah.
I needed that connection. I figured some other women did too. So Anna gave me a reason to get dressed, curl my
Mm.
hair, put
Mm-hmm.
on my makeup, and it was therapy for me to show up every day because I thought, oh, somebody might be watching. Who knows if they were or not? But it was
Right.
really for me. It was
And
for
even if nobody's watching, I just want to point out that you're building a muscle at that point. That
yes,
is the consistency muscle. That is the showing up muscle. That is that. And for anybody listening right now who may be discounting yourself because you're like, oh, well, she's just built that way. Here's the thing. You, I guarantee, have a superpower. It may not be the same as Karen's, but you have a superpower, and it's probably something that you take for granted that other people that you always think is easy and you don't understand why other people struggle with it.
yeah. I mean, some women, whether they show up for themselves, maybe it's writing in their journal
Hmm.
or talking to a girlfriend, going to cup of coffee once a week with maybe a
Those
girlfriend.
things are underestimated, aren't they? Because there's power in the quiet moments. There's power in showing up for other people too, or power in showing up for yourself in quiet ways
Yeah.
that shouldn't be underestimated either, I think.
Right. And so one of I think it was Anna Margalina challenged me. So I have these women who challenge me with these thoughts and these actions. And she said, you are truly happy when you can enjoy time with yourself, something along those lines. So I took that to heart and I thought, you know what? When I go bike riding, that's for me. That's for me to show up just for me, not for anybody else. And that's my time. That's my play time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have some fun. And
I
it's
love
not
that
going
you
to have
brought
any
up play.
agenda.
You know that I love that you brought up
I
your
know, I do. I
playtime.
kind of brought that up on purpose because, sometimes, when we feel invisible, it's because we don't even see ourselves. And it's not up to anybody else to make us feel seen.
Amen. 100 mic drop moment. Seriously, it isn't. It is not for anybody else to make you feel seen.
Right. And that's why I think I've always gone to storytelling
Yeah.
as kind of a base because there are so many stories, so many brave stories that we've walked through. And that's your lived experiences, your lived wisdom. And I have found it so interesting as we have told stories, and people come up to whoever I was interviewing at the time and they'd say, oh, I got this out of it, or no, I related to this. There's just those little pieces. It doesn't even have to be the same story. But it's a lot of times that emotional experience that we've gone through that we share and how we got through something and what it feels like on the other side. That's what women relate to. So that's why on our site too, I have our interview questions that we had in the book. And any woman can go for free and write her story. Now she can write it for herself and never share it to anybody, but it's healing. Now if it's a traumatic story, go to your counselor, work with them. But if it's a story you've already gone through and you've learned the lessons, go answer those questions, whether it's for you or submit it and share that with on our website.
I love that you make that available. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
any woman can go do that, and it takes you right through your story. What was the circumstance, the pivot point, what did you learn, what were the lessons, what's the hope.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the book because those questions are the questions that you asked. You've
Yes.
got 29 women in that book sharing their stories, and it really does capture so many remarkable stories. Besides your story at the which is chapter 1, I believe, and Donita's chapters, I'm also thinking about Brenda Reese and Kathy Sparrow. I mean, Brenda learning to care for herself while caregiving for her husband with dementia, that is something that I think so many people as they age are going to be, that's
Yes.
going to be precious for somebody to hear. And then Kathy Sparrow being told by her guidance counselor in high school that she'd never be a writer and she took that to heart, but at some point she was like, "No, I'm gonna write anyway." And now she's a writer and she helps other women tell their stories as a book coach, right? Like,
Yes, and she guided us and she was my right hand in creating the book.
wow.
She helped us create the questions. She did all the editing. She did help guide everybody write their story.
Well,
Yes,
kudos to Kathy because great
yeah.
job.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
yeah.
yes, we could not have done it without her. But yes, these stories and like Brenda's story, I mean she's got many stories, but this one in her late blooming years, she thought her life was going to be totally different. I mean, how many women where you're at a spot that you never imagined you would be. You thought you were going to live this one particular life, and now life has really turned out quite different.
That is, I think, the prevailing story for everybody.
Yes.
It's like, life's little joke on all of us. Like you think it's gonna go this way, and then whoop, we got to make that left turn because there goes the rug out from under you for some reason or another.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
And I
then what do
think,
you do with that? What do
right.
you do with that pivot point?
Yes. And I think that's where the hope comes in that that it's one, it's going to be okay, that you're not the only one going through it. And that's where that alone piece is like, oh, I'm not alone. Somebody else got through that or something similar.
Yeah. Are there other stories in the book that are standouts for you that are just kind of bubbling up in your brain right now?
You know, several of the stories, Jody's and Vanessa's, they started writing their stories and they started, going through the questions and then they changed it. They realized the story wasn't about what they thought. The story was deeper about them.
Ooh, that's so juicy. And what a great reason for somebody to go to this spot on your website and
Yeah.
do this because you might surprise yourself. That's really cool. Is there a link that you can think of off the top of your head? I'm really putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, women can go to www.fave, that's FAVE, lifestyles with an S.app. And there's a button just right at the top and says reader submit a story. And you
Love
just
it.
right there, it's a Google Doc, download it, whatever, and write your story. But and then the other thing that was really surprising about all the women writing the stories, almost everyone came to me and said, we got to the question where it asked what does brave mean? And they usually wrote, it used to mean this, but now that I've written my story, it now means this.
Ah,
So there was a piece there that opened up and they realized something about themselves.
I love that.
And
That's
a lot of
fantastic.
times they cried because it was so heart touching. It's like, oh, I realized I was brave and it wasn't what I thought.
Yeah. Sometimes we're not even telling ourselves the truth about something that we've been through, and we don't see our own courage. Is there anything that you see in common with all the women in the book that contributed that maybe they have in common, even though all of their stories look completely different on the surface?
Well, there is a commonality. They're women who are very heartfelt. They're very passion filled. They're women who want to grow. They're women who want to discover really how they can impact and enrich the people around them.
I see that. I see that as a running thread of the women who are in your community in
Yes.
general. That is the running theme that I see is that there's a desire to expand and grow.
Yes. And serve. It's not
Yeah,
just helping somebody.
right.
It's really how can we come with our skills, our wisdom. That's why I call them my wise friends because they're thinking before they act and they're responding rather than reacting.
Mm.
And so that's one of the things that I really admire about these women. And so then they're coming from this place, like you said, of that lived experience. And it's like, how can we lift up our girlfriends to be their best? And it's just with that heart of service, I think that they come. And the women in our magazine now, too, in the Being Brave tour, that is a common thread through all those women as well.
What
Mhm.
amazing what seeing that piece of paper has done.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I'm getting like all the
Yeah.
goosebumps and all the things.
Yeah. I
If
mean, it still brings tears to my eyes when I think of that moment.
I bet.
It was a real truth, if you will. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. I have a little sandwich boardy kind of thing up in my kitchen with just a phrase that just says own it.
Oh,
And I feel like that was your own it moment.
yes. It was the moment I really had to take responsibility for me rather than allowing somebody else to decide for me.
What power in that. So with that said, what would you want the woman listening now, the one who feels invisible in her own life, what would you want her to know
You
right
know,
now?
yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I think what's coming up for me, because, I'm in a different place than I was even, a couple years ago. And what keeps coming up for me is exploring the beauty within. And that's also what our magazine is. And it's really to go inward, to see what that beauty is and to celebrate it. So I want a woman to go, okay, I'm going to take first of all, a moment for myself. I'm going to go sit on my couch or my comfy chair or wherever. Maybe you go to your car office so nobody can disturb you. And go and reflect and look inside and start looking. It's like, oh, there's the beauty. Oh, you know what? I do that really well. And start complimenting ourselves and discovering this like, oh, I really like to do this. I love to do this. I might go do that for myself. And really taking that look inward and seeing and celebrating that beauty. That's what I want her to see, those sparkles within.
I
Because
love
for
that.
so long I had my doors closed because I was so focused outward to the rest of the world, how I could please the rest of the world, how I could serve my family, all those places. And being in my 60s now, I'm in a different place. I can slow down a little bit and take some moments.
So, what is the bravest thing that you've done recently?
The bravest thing I have done recently is launch a magazine and a podcast at the exact same time.
Did you launch them at the same time? We didn't even talk about the fact that this is also a podcast that you do.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness. And again, I could not have done it without people coming and just surrounding me. So Lori Hardy, she came and she said, Karen, you've got all these interviews. Why don't you put them on a podcast? And I said, Lori, I don't know if I have the capacity to do that. She goes, I'll help you.
Wow.
I said, okay.
That's like an offer you can't refuse, right?
Yeah, and she's got a program, and so even, I mean, so here's the beauty of it. These ladies come and be like part of the magazine. Lori is in the latest issue and for free. So she charges for her podcast, all her programs and everything, but she has created this little AI little thing that the link is free in the magazine because all of our girlfriends need to have some help too. And
Mm.
you go to that little link and it'll create your title, your graphic, your first 10 episodes, and it's free in the magazine when you go to the digital link in on her page.
Wow. Okay, so go check that out if this is if
Yeah,
this is like in your wheelhouse, anything you're thinking of. Oh, I'm very curious about that.
yeah, I'll send you the link.
Okay, cool. Very,
So
very
yeah, I mean,
cool.
it's just, all these things that just come together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, here we go. I'm just going to go with it. And so now we have published, I think we're on our going to be publishing our sixth issue of the magazine.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. And we have, I think, 46 women on the podcast that we've been celebrating. So in the magazine, so the magazine is not just for the reader, and it is free. There's just a direct link. We're not even collecting emails or anything. We want this magazine to help every woman that it can help. And it's also a way we've celebrated 52 women there that have brought their resources, their skills, their wisdom, all their beautiful things that they have. And so so now we're celebrating in so many different ways.
That's fantastic. Do you have like a tally? How are you keeping track of all these women that you're celebrating?
Yeah, it's hard because even from the very beginning
How
as
do
a
you even
patient
know?
project.
Because I'm thinking about the exponential effects of what you do, right? Like you may have like interviewed so many women, and you may have, you've got the magazine with features of certain people, right? And then so
Stories and
stories and events that your host, right? The book. And so I imagine there's like an exponential effect of what you're doing too, that you'll never even
right.
be able to count.
Correct. Correct. And so I've never really kept count, that I think the 1 million women is not so I can tally, but
Right.
really so it'll keep me going.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's so many more women to celebrate. How can we do that? How can we lift all these ladies up? And so now we're bringing the magazine to communities. So the next up is Carol Dockham's community, Beautiful Faces Going Places Success Network. So we're bringing the magazine and highlighting some of her ladies and bringing it to all of
Oh,
her community.
very
So
cool.
we can celebrate those ladies as well. So yes, it's exponentially, it's this ripple that is being created. And it's the women in the magazine sharing the magazine to their communities. So the women who come and like do the reflections, so they can be celebrated too.
It's fantastic. I'm seeing like waves on the ocean. Do you know what I mean?
Positivity.
Or like the dropping the stone in and the ripples just keep going out, Amazing, amazing. Well, before we wrap up, how can people stay in touch with you?
Yes, they can go to our website at fablifestyles.app. And on there, like I said, you can submit your story or read a story and be inspired. You can download the magazine for free. They're direct links. It's a digital magazine. We are going to be putting it onto Amazon. So if you'd like a hard copy, that will be coming soon. Reach out, share your story with me. I'm here.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
And I will have links in the show notes. And, thank you so much for being here. You started by finding your own story, and then look what's unleashed.
Yes, yes. And of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram and all the social media things. So you can find us there too.
Fantastic. I'll have all the links in the show
Fun.
notes for everybody. And for everybody listening, if you've been quietly convinced that nobody would care about your story, I hope today changed that a little bit. Those links, as I said, are going to be in the show notes for you. No email required. Just click Cozy In and let it remind you that there is something beautiful about yourself, and that really needs to be shared with the world. And if this conversation moved you, share it with a woman who needs to hear it today, because that's how we become each other's Donita, my friend Donita. And don't forget to subscribe here on the channel so you never miss an episode. Until next time, my friend, bloom like you mean it.